Well, welcome to Wealth Strategies Unleashed. I'm Robert Gilliland with Concenture Wealth Management here in Houston.
And I'm Mike Alexander, Chief Investment Officer.
And so, myth busting. Let's myth bust.
It's my favorite show.
Let's
busting myths.
Let's bust the myths about retirement planning and wealth management. And I'll start.
Please.
Take Social Security when you're 62. Conversely, to say that's the rule, I should always take it as early as possible or take it as late as possible, that is absolutely a myth. It all depends on cash flow and how you need the flow of money.
I think you're 100% correct, Robert. I think that really when and how to take Social Security is kind of a unique combination of art and science. It's based on things like life expectancy. Are you married? What's the difference between the husband and the wife? So there's a lot of different things that can come into that in terms of when to take it and how to optimize that strategy. Certainly something we can help people do.
That's right. Well, and the thing is that when you're looking at Social Security and you go and you take it early, you get a discount for every year, 15% discount for every year. And the flexibility to be able to work or have earned income can reduce that or make more of that taxable. But if you are on the other side, is that if your full retirement age is 66 and you wait to start to take it to 70, that goes up by 8% per year. So you can end up getting more. But the reality is that if you don't have longevity in your family, that may not be as important, and maybe taking it at full retirement age may be the better way to do it. The other thing we found in taking Social Security and deciding when to do it all has to do about cash flow, living off of your investments. People do a great job of accumulating assets. Where they really suffer is the distribution phase of those assets. They really don't know exactly how to go to take it, and you have to take that Social Security, and you're exactly right. It is art and science to determine what's the right amount. When should I be taking it? Because there's tax implications. Mm-hmm. There is cash flow implications. At the end of the day, there's implications in the rest of your assets and how they work and grow for you.
For sure, it can impact even generations after that, because there's an estate planning component. Obviously, if you're maximizing Social Security, that means you have to take less of your investable assets out over a period of time, and so that can impact your generations after your own.
Right. All right, that was myth one. Myth two is on you.
Well, so I think everybody's heard of dollar cost averaging, right? So let's say that you are, you're in retirement and it's actually time to start pulling money out. Well, when you dollar cost average, typically you're buying an investment, and as the price goes down, you're actually buying more and more shares. Well, one that people probably have spent less time thinking about is dollar cost ravaging. And what dollar cost ravaging is when you actually are in an environment, and thankfully we haven't been in that environment this year, but you're in an environment where investment prices are actually going down. And if your spending is the same, then what's happening is that the market is coming down and you're actually pulling money out. So if you use like a $1 million investment as a hypothetical, if the market goes down 5%, you're down at $950. Well, if you're spending, on your way down, you actually have less investable proceeds now working for you. And so it's actually can be very, very counterproductive to be in an environment. So one of the things that we always recommend is that you want to be, in a perfect world, you really want to be in an environment where you're underspending the amount of money that you're earning. Again, it's about living within your means, and some of that is obviously determined based on the return that you're actually getting in the marketplace.
I love that dollar cost ravaging, and I think that there's long been a thought in retirement income planning that you take what your assets are and you can live on, and there's tons of white papers out there that say 4%. Mm-hmm. So someone has that $1 million. They say, okay, 4%, I can take $40,000 per year for the rest of my life and not have to worry about running out of money out of that.
Right.
Well, the problem is that when the markets drop by 20%, the way that the 4% rule works is you have to adjust your spending, but
Right.
people don't. And I go back and I think about clients that we worked with with the tech bubble when it popped. I think about the clients who talked when we had the Great Recession, and the clients who made it out a year, 2 years later with more money than when they went into those events were the ones that had enough cash to maintain that standard of living. But two, those who adjusted their lifestyle. That's what made it so that they were successful and they didn't end up dollar cost ravaging. I love that, dollar cost ravaging their portfolio, because with times of market volatility, selling something does have a significant impact, right?
Absolutely. There's a big difference between 4% of $1 million and 4% of $800,000. And so the 4% still applies. It's just you're dealing with a different number.
Right.
And so I think it's important. And by the way, it works on the other side too when things are going well. But it's just something for, I think, investors to keep in mind as they think about their portfolios.
I think another myth is I'll be able to save more later. Think about that.
So there's an old saying that says, well, they always ask, well, when is the best time to invest money? And the shorter answer is whenever you have it. But to your point, a lot of people spend a lot of time, whether it's planning a vacation. We've all heard the analogy that most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning for retirement, and there's a lot of truth to that. And the reality is that a lot of folks will think to themselves, the only thing I really need to do is put money in my 401k, and that's all I'm ever going to need to do. The key is to really start early, and you want to build both sides. You certainly want to be funding money that's set aside for retirement, but you want to be funding some things like those emergency funds that we talk about all the time on our podcast, and you want to be thinking about setting aside money that's outside of the 401k, because heaven forbid, what if you have a job change or you lose a job and you're 55? You can't exactly start pulling money out of your 401k plan, at least not without a penalty. And so those are the types of things that you want to be thinking about as an investor. You want to start early. You can start you can start funding things like Roth IRAs, as soon as you start generating an income. So this applies to very young people as well as those that are just now starting out in the workforce.
To the idea of being able to save more later, and with having 5 kids that have a dad that is a financial advisor, that they get tired of hearing this. But when you go through, I tell them all the time, and when we talk with clients' kids, I tell them the very same thing. There's a study out there, and this is just simple compounding, right? Is that if an 18-year-old will start to save $2,000 per year and they'll do it for 10 years, they'll have more money than the person who starts at 28 saving $2,000 all the way to age 60. The 18-year-old will save for 10 years, and the 28-year-old will save all the way until they're 60, and you end up with more money. The idea that I'll be able to do it tomorrow, something always comes up. It gets in the way. So it doesn't matter if you are 40. It doesn't matter if you're 30. It doesn't matter if you're 45 or 50. The idea, well, as soon as these kids get out of school, then I'll be able to save more. No, you have to treat yourself like a bill at the beginning, because you need that time for the markets to work and grow.
I can just tell you that I think both you and I can attest to this, and I'm sure and our clients can as well. Is that if you wrote down every bill that you had when you were in your early 20s, and you wrote down every bill that you have now, my guess is that you don't have less, you have more. So this thought process behind, I can start later, all it does really is increase the amount you have to save. It's a lot less painful to start early and do it consistently than it is to try to catch up at the end.
That's exactly right. Another myth that I think we bump into often, because we spend so much time helping clients plan for retirement, planning that income stream, is I'll spend less in retirement. And what I go through and tell people is that I think that there was some research that was done that says if your after tax, whatever your after tax income you're living on prior to retiring, you can plan on spending about 85% of that in retirement. That's probably true over the entire lifespan. But this is what I found. What I found is that the first 5 to 10 years, you're spending at least as much, if not more. That's when you're traveling, visiting the grandkids, you're hunting, fishing, playing golf, doing all these different things, and there's money that's being spent. So you're spending as much, if not more. Then you go through a period of, call it 5 to 10 years, where you actually spend a lot less. You've been on all those trips. The grandkids, quite frankly, don't want to see you that much. You've got these other things that are going on, and you just slow down a little bit. There's not as much money that's going out. But then the last 3 to 5 years, you end up spending a lot more, right? And so the idea that you're going to spend less in retirement may be true, but that's over the entire 20 or 30 year period of retirement, not in these different sections.
And to your point, if you think about what's happening during those various periods of time, again, those first 5-10 years of retirement, you're enjoying all the things that you just mentioned, Robert, and then there's a period where you kind of come to this realization that if we keep spending money like this, there's a possibility we're going to run out. So all of a sudden you kind of feel like, hey, I probably need to kind of shut it down a little bit and maybe slow down a little bit. And then towards the end, as you mentioned, sometimes there's health things that start to pop up. And sometimes it's, maybe you have, kids or grandkids that need additional assistance. There's all kinds of other things that can come up. And so, it doesn't necessarily work in a straight line, does it?
No, that's exactly right. It's not. The final myth that I think that we need to bust right here is that estate planning is only for the rich, the ultra rich, people with hundreds of millions of dollars.
I would say that estate planning is important for everyone. Now, I think when a lot of people think estate planning, they think about, well, how am I going to give money away philanthropically, or do I need to get a foundation? And I know a lot of those apply to the high net worth and the ultra high net worth. But there are lots of simple things that a lot of times people forget to do. Just simply doing a will, sometimes people will forget, and it's amazing. You could probably Google this and see all of the famous people that that passed away without a will, and things became a disaster. But I think for people who want to make sure that their wishes are carried out the way that they planned, doing at least some simple estate planning, and you can make it as complex as you like, but at least starting with some simple estate planning makes a lot of sense. And clearly, as your net worth grows higher, it may get a bit more complex. As your family grows, it may get more complex, and certainly as your family situation changes, it can get more complex. So all of those are things that you certainly want to make sure that you're addressing.
Well, there are a couple things and then a story. I think that when people think about estate planning, there are documents that you need to have drafted. You need to have a will. Whether or not you have a trust or not is a different conversation. But at the very least, you need to have a will. You need to have a directive to physicians. You need to have a healthcare power of attorney. You need to have a durable power of attorney. There's some documents. You need to, when you're thinking about estate planning, you need to review the beneficiaries of IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks. You need to review the beneficiaries on annuities, life insurance policies. And I would say that once you go through and do that, the next thing that you really need to do is have a conversation with those that are in the know. It's really interesting. And I just read this article, and it's kind of appropriate that we're talking about this. Aretha Franklin. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Aretha Franklin. Very good, huh? Very good. Aretha Franklin had a will that was drafted by an attorney in 2014. I may be off on my dates. It was locked away in the safe of the house. At some point, Aretha Franklin drafted a different will. It was a handwritten will, and she changed the terms. 2 years after her death, they found the rewritten, handwritten will in a couch. In a couch. The courts just ruled that this new, the handwritten will is in fact her last will and testament, and that's what they should go over. That's what the estate should be distributed by. Now, there are a lot of things inside of a family, and there's a lot of dynamics, but the reality is that she handwrote it. They found it in a couch, which is bizarre to me a couple years later, right? And the courts ruled that was a valid will. Making sure that you have those documents, having them in place to prevent that will contest, because the Lord knows how much it costs the estate.
For sure.
Inside there. And making sure other people know about that will and know what your intentions are ends up becoming important. So it's not just for the ultra rich.
For sure. Great story.
And so kind of with that, can you think of any other myths?
You know, I'm sure there are tons of myths that we could actually talk about. I think you covered a lot of the major ones, or we covered a lot of the major ones that I think people tend to run into quite a bit. But I'm sure that we have room in another podcast to cover 5 or 6 more.
Probably. Well, with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening this week. We will see you again next Monday. I'm Robert Gilliland with Concenture Wealth Management here in Houston, and
we'll see you next time.
See you next time. All right, so let's take care of some legal stuff. As a representative of Sanctuary Securities, Inc., and an investment advisory representative of Sanctuary Security Advisors, LLC Securities, offered through Sanctuary Securities, member FINRA and SPIC, advisory services offered through Sanctuary Advisors, LLC, an investment registered investment advisor. Concenture Wealth Management is a DBA of Sanctuary Securities and Sanctuary Advisors, LLC.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as an offer or solicitation with respect to the purchase or sale of any security. The content is developed from sources believed to be accurate. No warranty, express or implied, is made regarding the accuracy, adequacy, completeness, legality, reliability, or usefulness of any information.
Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or to predict future performance. The views expressed herein are not necessarily representative of Sanctuary Securities, Inc. or Sanctuary Advisors, LLC, and should not be interpreted as investment advice.
Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit against loss in periods of declining values. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Any investment discussed may not be suitable for all investors. Investors must take their own decisions based on their specific investment objectives and financial circumstances. Consult your financial professional before making any investment decision.
No part of this communication is intended to be construed as tax or legal advice. Please discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal professional.